President Trump has gotten back to work for his second term at breakneck speed, making big moves to reshape policy and push his agenda. And it seems like lately, every time we get a notification on our phones, it's a new Trump executive order. From immigration to education, January 6th pardons, and more, Trump has had a very busy first few weeks in office. But with all the orders and actions, what are Americans thinking? To break this all down, we're going to go on the record with Scott Tranter, the director of data science at Decision Desk HQ. Scott, it's great to see you and thank you for joining us. I want to start with Trump's latest approval rating. A Gallup poll released earlier this week shows Trump is viewed favorably by about 48% of voters and unfavorably by about 50%. That poll showed him with the highest favorability of 14 different political figures, both Democrat and Republican. You said last week on the show that you'd like to see a trend in polling before making any judgments on Trump's new administration. So, Scott, this week, are you seeing any trends yet?
Yeah, I think the trend is, look, we're within the margin of error on a lot of these things. It's going up and down. There are some polls where it's above water. There's some polls like that where it's below water a couple of points, but they're all within the margin of error. I think, Julie, one of the things I think about is his first administration, especially those first 100 days where we would get a poll out and then we'd look at the field data of the poll and we'd realize that that was a week ago and the world has changed in a week under the Trump administration. I think that's where we're at now. So we'll see where this all lands. One thing I'd like to note, just to expound on a little bit, look, Donald Trump is very good at saying what he is going to do. He had campaigned a lot of these things, and he's doing a lot of them. So what'll be interesting is does he keep the Republican base that elected him? And that's what I'm looking in the crosstabs on a lot of these. I don't expect him to gain any plaudits among the Democratic base, but it's that Republican base. Is he going to lose them? And right now in these crosstabs, I don't see any of that. But that'll be the canary in the coal mine I look at over the next couple months.
Scott, I want to stick with that same Gallup poll, which found that public opinion is actually souring on Elon Musk. 47% say they disapprove of the billionaire in charge of slashing government spending. Meantime, the amount of power he is wielding seems to not be sitting very well with Republicans. According to a separate Economist YouGov poll, just 26% say he should have a lot of influence in the administration. Compare that to 47% just a few weeks ago. Scott, do you have or see public opinion having any impact on Musk's position and influence within the administration?
Absolutely. And there's a poll right there. Outside of margin of error, significant movement. Did he move down 20 points? I don't know. I'd like to see a few more, but did he move down more than a few points? Absolutely. And then look, his news mentions, his ability to make news over the last month since that poll was taken is in direct reflection of why that moved down. We will see whether or not that drags down President Trump. I mean, look, as we're taping this just a few hours ago, they announced Elon Musk on the cover of Time.
Yeah.
What we've learned about from the first Trump administration is he likes to be the top dog. He likes to get all the credit, and we'll see how that plays out because Elon Musk is certainly taking up a big chunk of the spotlight.
I want to switch gears to education. Friday morning, several members of Congress were locked out of the Department of Education following the president's continued promises to shutter the department. Democrats are crying foul, but this isn't exactly a new proposal. Republicans have been trying to axe the Department of Education for years now. In the meantime, a new Gallup Mood of the Nation survey found that Americans are disappointed in public schools. 24% say they are satisfied, while 73% say they are dissatisfied with public education. These figures are the lowest since the poll began in 2001. Scott, with these record low satisfaction numbers, is getting rid of the department finally within reach, or is that going to look a little different going forward?
It's definitely within reach, and I think that is why that those poll numbers are why we see the Republicans acting on this. And look, at the end of the day, when we're posing these big sweeping questions to voters, they think about it in the macro sense and they don't understand quite how it all flows down to them at the school board level. And I think that's what the Democrats are trying to push. But by and large, look, this is what the Republicans, I mean, look, it was back in 2012 when Rick Perry was running on this, 2016, he was talking about this kind of stuff. Donald Trump's been talking about this for 8 years, so no one should be surprised about this. We will see how it all shakes out. I think that's what the Democrats are counting on is people will say, look, we wanted to change, but this wasn't it.
And the economy continues to be top of mind for voters. Egg prices are soaring because of the bird flu, and many Americans are concerned Trump's tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China will hurt the U.S. economy. 48% according to a Quinnipiac University poll, compared to just 42% who expect the tariffs to help. And despite all of that, Americans have high hopes for Trump's economy. According to Gallup, 53% of Americans believe the U.S. economy will grow over the next 6 months. Scott, it seems like a plurality don't support the tariffs, but a majority think the economy is on the up and up. What's the disconnect here? Do you think this is a case of them taking Trump seriously, but maybe not literally?
I think that's exactly what it was. And that's kind of what we saw unfold with the Canada-Mexico tariffs. You know, he announced it on Friday, he signed it on Saturday, and by Monday afternoon, he had done a 30-day pause. The markets reacted accordingly. This is classic Donald Trump. He says he's going to do one thing, he takes it to the brink, he may extract a win like he said he did on these two tariffs, and then pull it back. And so I think both things are true. I think people generally think tariffs won't help, but I also think generally speaking, they don't believe he's going to enact anything significant on that front.
I want to shift the focus to elections this year. While most national offices won't be on the ballot this year, two of the largest American cities are picking a new mayor. That's Boston and New York. Let's start in Boston, where Josh Kraft, the son of New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft, joined the race this week. Kraft criticized incumbent Mayor Michelle Wu's focus on issues like bike lanes, but Wu's historically been pretty popular in Boston. What does Kraft bring to the table, and do you see him causing any trouble for her in the primaries?
Yeah, look, he brings trouble because he brings money. And that certainly helps in the Boston, mayoral primary. Her tenure over in that city she's had some plus notes, she's had some downside, especially as, Boston kind of goes through a little bit of a change with, crime and education and things like that. I think he certainly makes it interesting because he can afford to drop some real money in that race. I think the slight edge is to her as the incumbent mayor, but he's going to make that one an interesting to watch.
I want to turn to the Big Apple. Mayor Eric Adams seems to be in trouble for his reelection bid. According to an Emerson College poll released earlier today, he's polling more than 20 points behind former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who hasn't declared his intent to run. 25% of New Yorkers are still undecided, according to that poll. Scott, is this the push Cuomo needs to jump in the race? How much do you expect his history in the governor's mansion to impact a potential run?
Like, there's the name Andrew Cuomo, right? I mean, I'm waiting for Anthony Weiner to throw his name back in there. I mean, this is pretty crazy. Eric Adams rumored to be flipping over to Republican, maybe out with a deal. Look, this New York City mayoral race is for political election nerds around the country is going to be one of the ones to watch. And if you're in New York City, it's going to be heavily fought because all those candidates up there have a decent base of support, will raise a significant amount of money, and in some cases have some very good name ID. So look, I don't know how this one's going to end up. I'm a little bit surprised that Andrew Cuomo is polling so well. I happen to think that's probably because of name ID. And once we get into the issues, that's when this stuff really kind of, what happened with him and the governorship really comes down to it. But, look, that's going to be a crazy primary to watch. That's for sure.
No, it's certainly wild. I mean, New York City politics in general for, any political junkie is so fascinating to look at. Probably one of the most exciting cities politically, really, in the world, quite frankly. The Trump administration, switching gears, has been cracking down on immigration sanctuary cities, threatening to withhold federal funding, conducting ICE raids, and even suing the city of Chicago. Both Boston and New York are sanctuary cities, but that same poll showed New Yorkers are split on what kind of effect they think Trump's mass deportation policy will have on the city, with a nearly equal amount saying it will have a positive and negative impact. Scott, how do you expect the president's immigration crackdown to impact the mayoral elections in these two cities?
Oh, I think it's going to be a major issue, and I think you're seeing this. Look, if Eric Adams, fights it out, you kind of see where he's going to position himself on that. It'll be interesting where Andrew Cuomo starts coming down on it. You mentioned San Francisco, Boston, a couple of these other places. Look, immigration, as you and I have both talked about the last year, has been a top 3 issue amongst voters, certainly among Republicans as well as independents, maybe not so much Democrats, but even Democrats' top 5 issue. And it's not just about open borders. It is about, how do we handle the influx of them? What do we do with some of the criminals, all those types of things. So I could see Trump's, depending on how he takes, he goes after these cities, and depending on how he does it, it could be an issue where you see the Democrats move towards closer to the Republicans on some of these issues, and it be an issue where Democratic mayors move over to the right and become a little more centrist.
Before we let you go, Scott, Republicans have been dominating news coverage, but I want to shift our focus to Democrats. According to a recent New York Times Ipsos poll, many Americans say they do not believe the Democratic Party is focused on important economic issues. Instead, they have been placing emphasis on the social issues that respondents considered less urgent, like climate change, abortion rights, and LGBTQ rights. Ken Martin was just elected the new DNC chair. How should he and Democrats shift their focus in the second Trump administration?
Look, to channel one of the most successful Democratic campaigns in the last 50 years, Bill Clinton's presidency, Paul Bacala, James Carville, it's the economy. And that's what this election was about. There wasn't a single poll out there that didn't have the economy as top three issue, and most of them have it as the top issue, whether it was a Republican or a Democratic lean poll or a nonpartisan one. And so the fact that the perception of the Democrats is that's their number one issue, that's a branding problem that they're going to have to fix. They may feel like they're on the right side of history and the righteous fight on some of those issues being the top one, but the general public disagrees with them, and that's how they vote. And they're going to have to switch that around to align more with the general public, because the general public is the one who elects the members, and as we saw in the last election.
And we'll be watching the general public sentiment going forward in this new Trump era. Scott Tranter, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And that's it for What's America Thinking. I'm Julia Manchester. Come back here next week. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel.